there's an infinite amount of ways to get to the end of the end of the path. It did the top 1% activity that no one else is willing to do.
Yeah. If you never argue with your spouse, like, you're probably hiding a bunch of shit.
Being nothing allows you to be anything. I will be betrayed 1,000 times, but I will trust 1,001.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Strength Connection podcast. I'm your host, Michael Krakowski. Let's get right to it. All right, so today I'm joined by a truly inspiring man, Adam Rodriguez. He's the founder and CVO of Metaplexus and the Royale Foundation, and he's one of the most physically, mentally, and spiritually strong people I've ever met. I got a chance to meet Adam at the first ever Metasummit where he told his story, and after that, I had to have him come on the show. Adam, he's created an incredibly successful multi-million-dollar business in just the past year, but this success came from many years of physical, mental, and emotional hardships. It's one of the most open, honest conversations about struggle, acceptance, and embracing all aspects of life I've ever heard in this episode. Just truly felt special. So with that, we'll get to it. If you like this episode, you want to show the podcast some love, please rate and review it wherever you're listening. And don't forget to subscribe. You can catch all new episodes that are dropped every week. All right. Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Now let's get on with the show. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Adam Rodriguez, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
Thank you, brother. I'm great. How are you doing, brother?
It's great to see you again. So I got a chance to meet you a couple weeks ago. So it's great to reconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like when we first met, there's a natural connection. So that this is cool. I didn't expect this, but I think this is just beautiful right now.
I didn't either. And you know what, as I just mentioned, your story that you shared at the summit, just a little backstory for anybody listening. So I met Adam at the Metasummit a couple weeks back from when we're recording this, where his company Metaplexus put it on. Known of you for a bit, just from a connection from Brian and Carrie, but got a chance to meet you and hear your story of just your journey all the way through building this great successful company. But some of the messages and some of the stories that you shared really personally hit me. One of the things I'll kind of kick this off with, as you said, it's a spiritual message disguised in a Western suit. And as soon as I had, that was one of the notes, I was like, that is so perfect. Cause I think very similar to that in the strength industry, where it's much more of a spiritual and mental journey where it's so focused on the physical, but without that part, you're missing a lot of it. And I think you share a lot of those same things in the business world and the world of your family and everything. So I'm really happy there's such a good synergy here.
Yeah, brother. Yeah. If it's okay. It's funny, being in fitness and all that, I did that for a number of years. It's actually my first half of my endeavor professionally and personally. And the fact that you said that with the spirituality and it's it is true. I believe spiritual growth is very physiological. It's very physical. It's not what I don't know what people think. I know what I used to think, that it was just this magical thing that just whatever.
Yeah.
I was ignorant. So that's where that came from. But it's just funny because as you master the body, you master the mind. But sometimes, if we don't balance that, it can be too heavy one or the other. You got the skinny guy that's overconfident and they can beat you up. You got the big buff guy that's too timid to talk, right? So it's that balancing is beautiful, I think, in fitness nutrition.
Yeah. And I think eventually, if you continue on that path, you're going to get to that at some point. Especially on the physical front, you can build a routine, you can get the body that you're looking for, you can get all the health biomarkers. But if you want to continuously progress, you're going to get to that point in mastery where you need to look at it on the mental side or the spiritual side. It needs to be a deeper connection, right? Of just besides just the plan or the program that you do. And I think that probably resonates with anything. It can resonate in business. If you just follow tactics and strategies, it will get you to a certain point. But if it's not aligned with some sort of vision that's bigger than yourself, then eventually you're going to hit a ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. So with this summit, I had to tell you, this was one of the most impactful, gatherings that I've been to, in my career, 15 years, been to a lot of strength and conditioning ones. I've been a lot of, speeches about success and mindset building business. And a lot of them, they're very centered often around the newest tactic or strategy. This is how you build this. This is how you build a 6-figure, 7-figure business, or this is how you get the body you dream of. And then at the end, it's like, well, buy my book and, get this set. Where you guys, it was a very different feeling behind it. Like it was very much from hearing BG kick it off to then hearing your story. Like it was so much about being aware of yourself and, really connecting with yourself on a deeper level. I don't know if that was intended of what you guys did, but that seemed like it kind of resonated. Did you guys have an idea of what you wanted this first summit to be?
It was a general idea. Like my initial goal being the visionary of the company, just kind of who I am. I wanted like 300 people there, I think the max was like 280 or something that we could fit in there. And BG was like, the first event, let's maybe drop back like to 30. I was like, well, let's say like 50. It's like, that's fine. Like, I think more than that. So actually being around there with staff and all, about 50 people or so. So it was actually perfect. So we aligned in that. That was the initial alignment. I think it's just kind of how the company goes, like speaking on the spiritual aspect, it's, I don't claim to be any level of awareness or that I'm in this state or that state. But the way that BG defines it, that, like I often feel in the flow state. And so, when I spoke, when Marlon spoke, when BG spoke, when Jesse spoke, when Martha spoke, it was like, I just saw all the same message in like how we look at spiritual, like we'll have our little sliver of perspective, and that's a part of the truth, but it's not the whole truth. And when we work together, we kind of build a whole truth. And that's kind of where, I was like, well, it's a Western company that really just, it's disguised. Or it's a spiritual message disguised as a Western company. That's really what it is, because at the end of the day, like there's an infinite amount of ways to get to the end of the end of the path, right? And I don't know if it's in this body necessarily, but there's so many ways. And I just think that the energy that we put out, and I'm not too metaphysical about things, but who BG is, and he's always said on our executive calls, like he goes, dude, you can teach the shit that I teach. And like, I don't believe that, like I'm not at his level, but I think he means it that I understand it for some reason really well.
Yeah.
And so he's always like had this like respect where it's like, I don't know, I always speak from the heart, but like this just bridging point. So I honestly think it was the team and who we are. Like we had morning devotionals for a year, every single morning with the executive. I mean, devotionals like from, Paramahansa Yogananda, from the Bible, from Jesus, from Buddha, from, what BG, like this devotional is 30 minutes dedicated to just connecting with each other and something bigger than ourselves. And that we did that for a year. And so I think just that alignment, and then BG, like, I'm going to go help find some people. I think just knowing, again, like that relation to what we built and to who those people were, I think just aligning it. So for some reason, the message just kind of resonated perfectly as to what we were seeking without knowing we were seeking that. That's, called the flow. So I don't know what we want to call that, but
it's interesting. I understand it. And, BG, Brian Grasso, that's how we've been, connected. I understand that from his front. I've followed his work and been a student of his for a while. With that, like with the devotionals and kind of starting that off, was that your idea as well? Or was that something that kind of you aligned with Brian on kind of when you kind of got these things rolling? Because just to have some context, I mean, Metaplexus is a relatively, new company. You guys been around for a short period of time, but the success that you had, over the first year, I mean, is incredible. It's already a multi-million-dollar business with there. So all these things that we're talking about, there's a lot of biomarkers of, great success as well for everybody that's been involved.
Yeah, I mean, to keep it real short, it was I don't remember who decided. I want to say it was Marlon, who was the CEO of Metaplexus, my good friend and business partner. He, I think it was ultimately his idea to label it, but it spun from Marlon. I just like, really, it was me. Like, I like to talk about, like, I actually don't talk about much business people think, like with the successes I've had through my life or not had. I relate business as a way to like communicate the story. But with him, I could just be open, like, hey, man, this is like my dream last night. Like I went to another realm. Like it was weird. Like I got this like weirdly robust message. And we totally transparent. I'm a participant in plant medicines. I've used Bufo and Ayahuasca. And honestly, the reason I seek those wasn't because I was spiritual before. I have a massive brain injury that just destroyed my life. And so that was like the last, like nothing's worked. like F it. And it actually showed me something that I'd always been connected, kind of being that visionary. And it just allowed me to be more of me. And so when he'd be talking about systems and processes, I'm like, dude, I'd start using spiritual, not terminology, but just my perspective of like speech.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just literally he goes, dude, like, why don't we just take like 15 minutes a morning to do this? I was like, yeah, you're right. Cause I would just go on forever. And he's like, let's like organize this, So he kind of started like that. And we brought in kind of, when BG came on board, and it kind of just became this beautiful thing of just, yeah. I mean, we recently slowed it down because we're shifting into some other things, but we're going to bring that back because I think that was a very powerful thing. And even BG complimented, like, I've never seen a company do this, every morning as a part of an executive meeting.
Sure. What was the response like from the rest of the team when you guys implemented that first? Because it's kind of something that it seems like everybody is like, yeah, that's a really good idea, but then actually structuring it and doing it on a regular basis is not as normal. What was the response like? Was it well received right off the bat, or was it it took a little while, to kind of get everybody kind of wrapped around it?
We did it kind of in a two-step process. So our main executive morning call was 4 of us. Now it's 6 of us. But it was 4 of us, and we'd have what we call our leadership. So that's basically everyone else that's helping us in the game here at the Metaplexus level. Mm-hmm. And that might be, I don't know, depending on the day, 7, 8 people, 9 people. So we would do like 15 to 30 minutes by ourselves, and like we have someone to, Christian and someone that, we got BG and Marlon, who's really non-denominational. He's just kind of open. I'm very receptive and open to any teachings. We would just speak from our heart. That's basically, we would just share. And, because, oftentimes religions is like, well, this is what we do and the way that we do it.
Right.
And hearing each other's perspective versus like just in business, it was like, it just connected us and it helped us kind of be better leaders. And so in the leadership meeting, once we entered that like more hardcore devotional, we would do it very brief. Like it wasn't as hardcore because we didn't want to spend 2 hours a morning doing devotionals. We still had business to do.
Yeah.
But we would do that heavily, and then bring in those notes very briefly in the first 10 minutes and let people share. So first 10 minutes, it was kind of just very brief, but enough to connect. And people like, oh, like this is a, multicultural, multi-denominational. This is like not one way is the way, all ways are the way. And it's just, that's spiritual in itself. Like there's infinite paths to be on the path,
Sure.
Or 2 different ways to be on the path.
What do you think on the leadership front of it and kind of making you a better leader or a better group? What do you think it was about that? Do you think it was just everybody was kind of just being very truthful and authentic in their thoughts to beginning, or was it something else? Like, what was it that was impactful on the leadership front you felt from administering something like this?
I credit a lot of it just to experience, from being, an instructor starting at 14 in martial arts, Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, and then, the Marine Corps and being a follower and then a leader later in that, and then fitness nutrition. I think just kind of seeing, I talk about the 4 color personalities, and like when I'm training, I'm very, what we call green. It's very data, very analytical, very systems based. And it works to an extent when people want to follow, right? It's very different. Like you talked about earlier, kind of like, give me the tactics.
Sure.
But like people have to want to follow to apply the tactics. So when someone hires me for, $200 an hour, like they're going to listen to me. So I can just give them tactics and I just make them do it. We're in a leadership where, one thing that we try to do best is not use hierarchy, or that because I'm the founder, I'm more special, or because Martin's the CEO, he's more special, or because BG's been in this for 30 years, he's more special. Like we're peers. We all have our position where this is our part of the kingdom, and then we have to listen to that. And then we come back down and we change positions. So I think I'm trying to answer it. I just think things have been so smooth. It has been intentional. But I think learning from all that in my past, and even BG and Marlon, being okay, like how can we be more elegant? That's one of our core values. How can we be more elegant in this process? Be more receptive on feedback and less responsive on feedback. So that was a big part of it. And I think the devotional would loosen us up to like what we call the red personalities, like the drivers in business, like the hardcore. Just tell me to do, I'm gonna go do it, right? It's a red personality.
Yes.
I'm very much that in business. Like you saw at the event, like I'm really, really chill. Like I don't have much to say unless I'm being asked questions. We're in business. I mean, like, let's do the thing. Like, let's do this together. And so I went from kind of being like, hey, MFers, like, this is what you got to do. I'm going to kick your ass versus like, hey, this is what I think is a good idea. What do you all think? And really just doing that. So the devotion was kind of like lighting us up, like, oh yeah, like it's bigger than us. Okay, cool. Moving to leadership. Hey, there's some notes that we brought up. Oh, that's really cool. Wow, it's interesting. And now we're open to receive versus trying to just be only the leader and allowing, being that teacher follower kind of thing, that all spirituality really teaches. Like, you're never the ultimate guru. You're always learning from your environment.
Right. That's interesting. It is. It's like to have, if you look at it like, left versus right brain, the creative side versus the logical side. And I think oftentimes in success, wherever you are in your journey or your level, sometimes you skew towards one that feels better. Like, I know forever I was so logical and like task oriented base, like I managed a club for a bit and it was like, all right, let's get this shit done. Like we didn't put the time in for that creative side, that open side of like, hey, what do you think about this? Oh, I had a thought about this, and just kind of the brainstorming side of it. And I think that's where sometimes a lot of these spiritual messages or these like connections that we want to talk about, it's not a logical thing. It's not something that you can pinpoint down, to have. It's something that's very open. There's not a lot of borders on it. So allowing that time to just speak openly on that in that right time, it probably allows then a lot better for, all right, now it's time to shift gears. All right, we need to get these things done. So it's kind of having that appropriate structure to, this is our open time that we can talk about this versus, versus this. So I love to backtrack on that, Adam, because I'd like to, hear more about your history of kind of building this up. And I know from your time in the Marine Corps, and then it was a long time of, dealing with some stuff. Would you mind kind of sharing a little bit of the story of how Metaplexus came about kind of from your experiences?
Yeah. I mean, I'll try to be brief, but it really did start. I remember being 8 or 9 years old and knowing exactly where I wanted to be. Now, this is an 8 or 9 year old brain, right? So it's not factual.
Sure.
But it was, I grew up watching, like Terminator and Die Hard, and Die Hard at 8, 9, or 10 is probably not ideal, but I was relatively level headed, so I understood the avatar versus like the action. Bruce Wayne and James Bond, and I really connected to James Bond and Bruce Wayne because as a child, it's not that my family was bad, but I felt lonely. And I don't know if it's because of the gap between my sister and I, or just because of, when my parents had a divorce, like none of it was bad, but there's this kind of like individuality that I felt. So I really lined with Bruce Wayne and James Bond for that reason, like F it, like I'm not going to complain, it's going to go do it. And I was very much like that as a kid. So when I aligned to that, when I met my stepdad, he happened to be this 20-year firearm, 30-year, martial arts genius. And he taught me that starting at 12, 13 years old. And that was like my intro to being, becoming the Bruce Wayne, the Batman, and the James Bond. And, now the new one's John Wick, Marlon plays real life. He's a real life John Wick. I don't know about that. Like, I'm really broken. I don't know if I could do any of that stuff anymore.
But I was, get the muscle car. Yeah.
Yeah. and, so I was relatively dangerous at a very young age, and I remember like people wanting to fight me in high school, and I would not fight because I was like, man, like, I'm 140 pounds, but I'm double legging 200-pound adults and tapping them out at night. Like, you're just a kid. And like, and it just wasn't like, I'm going to kick, but it was like, I don't want to hurt and I'm going to go to jail. Like, what the, like just trying to do the right thing. And, and it always went back to like James Bond and Batman. Like, Batman doesn't want to hurt people. James Bond, maybe James Bond does, right? But he just wants to do the right thing, right? So I learned how to bridge those avatars, because I think BG talks about having your avatars.
Sure.
And so I think for me, that's where it started. And it just, as I got introduced and the universe started to unfold for me through these different arts of firearms, and being mentally strong through all these things and martial arts. And my first year of jiu-jitsu at 13 years old, I mean, I was 135, 130 pounds being tapped out by full-grown adults, like super defeating. Jiu-jitsu's already got an attrition rate of 90% within the first year. Like, why I made it through, maybe because I had no ego yet. Like, I was like, I don't know, this is normal. Like, it was just the right timing. But and then same thing for boot camp. I mean, my parents, like, I'd write letters home, and like, we couldn't tell if you're at Marine Corps boot camp or space camp because it was too positive.
Oh, right.
Because I never saw like I saw the direness in life, but I was like, but where's the beauty? And it wasn't even intentional. It's just kind of like James Bond, like, you know, he doesn't say it, but he's always elegant looking.
Yeah.
He's debonair, like he just looks good no matter
Yep.
the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always wanted to project that. And it wasn't conscious, you know. And then, you know, Batman being like, you know, having that suit of armor, you know, it's the darkness within him showing on the outside. I had hardships in life. I was bullied as a kid. Like I could have had every reason to be a bad person, but I was like, but I want to use that to shine. And so I kind of embodied that very early on, but totally by accident, by the way. None of this was intentional. Then 9/11 happened. I joined the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
And people asked me, like, well, how'd you get recruited? And I was like, actually, I walked into the office. They didn't recruit me.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the easiest recruitment ever.
Sure.
Especially during that time where like most people got recruited. Very few walked in, you know?
Right.
But I always wanted to serve. And so kind of in 2008, you know, up to that point, it all sounds really cool. Like everything basically in my life was turned into gold. And when I got the traumatic brain injury in 2008 was while in Afghanistan, my life just completely 180'd. Nothing worked out. Like even my body started failing. And this is when I kind of learned like real willpower. Like I was already a pretty hardcore worker, but I couldn't sleep. I was drinking like, you know, 6 to 10 beers a night just to try and like not feel what I was feeling. At the same time, I was trying to be an MMA fighter. So here we are in 2009. I mean, drinking almost every night. And the only thing that kept me from drinking was like, I got a fight coming up. I can't drink.
Yeah.
That was the only thing. And I would train 3 times a day, 2 hours each training. And that was the only thing that occupied myself from not doing the bad things. So again, like that's taught in mindset and all this, but I didn't know mindset was like a teaching. Like I didn't know personal development was a thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was all by accident because I was like, I can't, like, again, going back to my avatar, it's like, I can't be this drunkard. I can't be this bad person. I can't let myself fall out of shape because then I can't serve people, especially as an active duty Marine. And so I use fighting to kind of keep me going. But once I got out in late 2012, my body started falling apart. You know, like I had, you know, I'd won a few fights, and then my last fight didn't go so well. And then my body started falling apart. Like I was running sub 6 minute miles, you know, 3 miles or more. I ran 4 or 5 miles or more. It was a 7 minute mile. Like, and don't do the math, but that's pretty decent, right? Yeah. I'm not a marathoner, but like, it's pretty decent.
Yeah.
To where like nothing, just like my IT syndrome, I think is what it's called.
Yeah.
IT band syndrome. Like I had my body was falling apart.
Just the chronic thing started popping up. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just defeated the crap out of me. And at the time I was a part of a network marketing company, and I was like, well, I can work from home. I'm all fucked up, but I can do something. So that's kind of when I started saying like, oh, entrepreneurship is very interesting. Like if I don't work, I don't make money, but if I work, I can. And so I kind of learned that by accident, you know, but 2013 was a hard year for me because I just felt super defeated. Like, I mean, up until about 2009, 2010, I mean, I was just stellar. I mean, I was breaking barriers. You know, if anyone in the military is watching, specifically the Marine Corps, I mean, I was a staff sergeant in less than 7 years. Like, that's insanely fast.
Is it? Yeah.
And like, I mean, I've been to the VA and they're like, they look at my medals and everything. They're like, it doesn't match. Like, were you like Black Ops? I'm like, no, I was none of that. They're like, your record's insane.
Right.
Like, how are you not 100% right now? Because I got out at 30%. They're like, that doesn't make any sense. You know, so they got me to 100. Like the VA system, which is often against us, right? It works, but because they were like, this doesn't make sense. But I felt deficient. I was like, why with a 30%? That doesn't seem like a big deal, but like I really felt like I couldn't function in 2013. I put on a lot of weight. And at some point I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to try and reintroduce my new self to my old self. And I went on a 90-day campaign of fitness, talking about fitness. And that's really what helped me reset. Cause I went down the traditional, like war veteran rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and all these things, and just like hating the world and hating people, and I already couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't trust people anymore. So how do you build a business if you can't trust people? Like, right. Sense. So like, you know what, 9 days, I'm going to focus on me and that's it. And I mean, I never deadlifted in my life. And the beginning of that, I mean, I didn't realize how hard deadlifting was. And I was deadlifting like 105 pounds. Yeah. Now I was super out of shape. So it's relative. Yep. But at the end of 90 days, I was deadlifting about 455, you know, and like I didn't know at the time how like amazing that was, but that's how,
Right.
like, you know what, like I'm gonna take all this pain
Mhm.
and direct it into this. I mean, I recovered from ITB syndrome,
Mhm.
something I told I would never recover from.
Yeah.
You know, and that's how I've done every injury I've recovered, other than this one that's been living for like 6 years, but it's getting better too. Anyways,
Mhm.
but that was kind of the ignition at the end of 2030 to be like, okay, like maybe this isn't as horrible as I perceive it.
Mhm.
Because even my wife was like, I mean, I was super depressed. I mean, they wanted to put me on medication, but I knew too many friends who'd commit suicide. And I already wanted to commit suicide with how I
Mhm.
felt. But it was 2013 was a very significant year of looking back. The time didn't feel like that, of kind of like my old self truly died and I was being reborn for the first time in a long
Mm.
time. And then 2014, 15, and 16 was basically just a lot of failures. In 2014, I was in personal protection, one of the top 1% companies in the world. Absolutely great at it. Absolutely hated it. Like
Mhm.
I could have been making 250,000 a year very easily, but like I was like, I got the Marine Corps for a reason because this stuff stresses me out. At the time, I didn't know why it stressed me out, but it's because I was not diagnosed fully with a TBI yet.
Oh,
That
okay.
like the most minute things in life stress me out, you know, like, and that's where I started to learn like, okay, like maybe I only have a little bit of time to function. I thought it was because I was deficient because something was wrong with me,
Mm.
like innately. But like, you know, working 12-hour shifts, 15, 20-hour shifts, like it would
Sure.
just like I get to like this stress mode of like hyper vigilance. I had no idea why. I was like, I'm not PTSD to like the extent where I'm like this. I'm like, what is
Right.
going on? But learning from BG more recently, I was always a neural threat because I have a fucking brain injury. So
Right. Right.
so I didn't realize it, you know. So that taught me another lesson. It's like, okay, you can't push yourself like this. No matter how good you're at something, pushing yourself into other unhealthy things is not good. So I
Sure.
stepped out of that industry. And even my manager was surprised. He's like, dude, like you could have been in my position. You could have eventually took over the company. I was like, dude, like I don't know how to explain it, but it doesn't feel right. And I'm always stressed out. And he's like, I can't see that. And I'm like, I know you don't because I'm good at hiding it, but like, fuck,
Right.
inside I'm blowing up. And so then I had an anxiety attack around that time. And I never had an anxiety attack in my life, never had anxiety, in fact, period, where I ended up in the ER because I had no idea what it was. I mean, my body, I was like numbing, like everything crazy you can imagine. And the doctor was like, you're having a panic attack. Like you're gonna be okay. I was like, no, like I'm dying. Like I'm
Yeah.
dying,
Oh, yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And like I just I believe that was the second time that I died. You know, like it was like a dissolving of self, you know, and I was like, okay, like I gotta change some shit. And that's when I kind of got into action to business again. That's when I started getting into fitness a little bit more.
Hmm.
You know, I was still in shape, and so I started training people. But again, like I didn't realize I had limited time every day. And so I would like have clients late in the day, whatever, like wherever they wanted to fit in, I would. And after like 30 days, I mean, I'm like, I can't sleep. Like I lose my
Yeah.
appetite. I will lose muscle. And I'm like, why is this happening? This makes no sense. And that
Hmm.
would happen literally every 2 to 3 months. I would lose that my appetite. All that muscle I put on, I would lose. I could literally go from 180 pounds, like 8% body fat, down to like 155, 160 in a matter of like 30 to 60 days. Like it was
Wow.
like totally unhealthy, but it was
Yeah.
not because I wanted it. Just the neural threat was so high that my body was just trying to survive. And so that was 2014 and 15. And in 2016, I was like, fuck it, I'm quitting. I'm done. Like, I'm 100%. Like, what am I doing killing myself? You know, but my wife's got a full-time job. We're all good. But every time I would do that, I'm like, now I really want to kill myself. Like, I was suicidal since 2008, 2009,
Wow.
like very constantly. And I planned it a few times and then just kind of snapped out of it. And every time I would stop working, I'm like, I feel better physically, but I feel worse mentally. I'm like, I can't stop. Like, I got to do something. So I'm like, you know, I'm going to do a little bit of something. My wife's like, you're not going to do a little bit. You're going to go all in. Like, you take it easy. I'm like, I'm not going to do a little bit. I'm not
Mm.
going to do a lot. But she knows me. Like, I'm an all in person, like
Right.
friendship,
Right.
everything. Like, I'm all in. Like, that's just how I am. Like, I don't play the partially in, partially out kind of thing. And so 2015 or 2016, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a little bit of a thing and whatever. And so in the industry of network marketing, I was consulted to help a company grow over the course of 2 to 3 months.
Hmm.
I was like, I can give you 30 days. Like, I know that's when I crash. And so I did something that they call a 30-day game plan. I recruited basically 18 people in 3.5 weeks. And that's top 1% of 1% in network marketing. And I literally crashed afterwards, but I did what they needed, right? So I did my part. And believe it or not, like as much as that was shitty after that, it like reignited the partial flame where I was like, oh, like I have deficiencies, like I have these struggles, I'm suicidal, but I just did the top 1% activity that no one else is willing to
Yeah.
do because I followed, like you said, tactics. It didn't feel good the whole time, but I did it and I was like, huh, okay. And that
Yeah.
was like the first, that was like, if like before Metaplex was the thing, that was the first reason Metaplexus started to like poke its way into my consciousness. So what I did in 2017, I started a coffee company. I made a deal with the local roaster, happened to be one, like not even exaggerating, one of the best coffees I ever had in my life. Like, I mean, I sampled coffees from all over the country. I couldn't believe he was down the street from me in Orange County, California.
Wow.
And so I made a deal with him. I did my own branding. I called it Cairo Royale. Amazing branding. I built stories around it. I learned so much in business, even though I had a lot of failures. I started selling $24 a pound coffee. Now that's normal, right?
Yeah.
2017, that was
it's a
like,
bargain in some ways.
yeah. And now people back then were like, what? But I just would tell the story like, man, you give me 2 bags.
Yeah.
Because fair trade's organic. We pay the fair price. We're doing this. It's locally owned and roasted. Like, oh crap. Yeah, cool. And so I started that and I had a little affiliate program in there. And that was my first initiation to offering entrepreneur, like training with a product and service space. And I was like, look, like, this is what I did. Like, I literally, my first 30 days in launching my coffee company, I sold something like, I don't know, it was 500 or 800 bags of coffee. It was something like that, like something insane by myself, which, times $24, whatever that is. First 30 days of business. As you all know my history now, like I crashed. I can't do that, right?
Yeah.
And so I was like, and this is when I was like, okay, like maybe I just need like coffee affiliates because I cannot do this. I can't keep crashing. It just doesn't work.
Right.
And part of the problem is being kind of the visionary that I am, like I can sell a story very well, but I would not spend enough time in the micro to teach certain skill sets. And so I would get people like, yeah, I'll buy 500 bags right now. I'm like, you don't need that many. No, I want to buy. I'm like, okay, like, cool. So I knew I can sell the story, but it was like getting into action. Like, oh, well, I'm like, hey, 30 days there. How you doing? Oh, I've sold 2 bags. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, reach out to me. So I was like, okay, maybe I need a system. And I got lost in that, like building a system. That's the green part of me, the data analytical, right? So I got lost in building systems. But I realized that when I got lost in that, I would not be doing selling, right? And then I ran into the book Start With Why. And this was late 2017. And he talked about entrepreneurs, how they can make millions of dollars by themselves, but they plateau at some point. And visionaries who make billion-dollar companies, but won't make a dime by themselves. And I was like,
right.
It's time to be brutally honest. Like, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm a visionary in the sense of how Simon Sinek defines it. And I was like, okay, I got to build a team. By this point, every fall and winter, I have a massive crash. I don't know why it follows the seasons, but my fatigue goes high. My sleep turns to crap. Like I'll fall asleep at 5. I'll wake up at 7. I'll be up to midnight to 4. Like I just become totally disoriented. It's every year, fall through winter, a little bit of spring sometimes, where I'm just effed up for 6 months. No idea why. But it's been for 15 years. And so when I decided to build a team, that's kind of when it happened. I was like, I just can't, like maybe next week, maybe next week, maybe next week. To the point where now we are in 2019 and my company is failing because it's just always next week because I kept having these crashes. And so 2020 hit and all my sales are person to person. I had buddies who had gyms and different businesses and that's where I was promoting. But as soon as everything shut down, all my sales stopped. I was like, oh shit. Like, my son's born. My company is failing. Like, maybe I'm just not built for this. Maybe I just suck. And it was one of the hardest realizations. Sorry. I'm a crier.
Oh yeah. It's all good, man. Yeah.
To just accept like I'm a failure.
Yeah.
But with that, in COVID was, and I said this in my speech, I mean, it was like, it was actually beauty to me. COVID was not what everyone else experienced. It was a time to go inside. And when I saw the world in chaos and freaking out, I was like, I'm not really freaking out. I just feel like a failure as a husband and a father.
Mm.
But my wife doesn't feel that way. I was living with my parents at the time, like, they don't feel that way. My son doesn't give a shit. He just knows that I love him. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe I'll just download Robinhood and I'll just buy some stocks because we had some money. You know, as much as that was failures, we had a lot of success. So it's some financial
Sure.
reserves, luckily, But I focus on the failures because too many people focus on successes, and it's like that doesn't matter. That's not the part that gets you through. It's your failures are the lessons.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me in 2020, it was like, okay, like I think I had something with a Kyle Real, but maybe it was the wrong model. And this is when, and I think you met Jaime briefly, who's the founder of eWealth.
Mm-hmm.
He just got into Amazon like late 2019. And he's running stores very lightly with friends and family. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go in with him. My brain's jacked up. I have no freaking energy. I'm realizing I have 3 to 4 hours a day to function, but I'm functioning 20 hours a day because I got a son who's got to be fed every 3 hours. Like, my wife's got postpartum. Like, it's just an effed up situation. Like, I'm just gonna put it into a vehicle. It's gonna help make me some money. And that was December of 2020 that it took us some time to decide because we didn't have a lot. We had money, but not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And so, it's a good chunk of money. And so we got into that, I got a business credit card. And in February of 2021, I was like, oh shit, like we just made like $3,000 doing nothing. I'm like, why don't more people know about this? And like the last, what is that, 2013 and last like 9 years, just like it just like 0 point. And I was like, oh, and that's when Metaplexus hit. I was like, I need to leverage technology better. I need to build teams and I need to use a product that I'm not in charge of, because as much as I can figure things out, I can't sustain it with the brain injury. It's too hard. And so I was like, okay, Jaime, this is what I want to do. What do you think? Great. So I built a funnel. I built a couple of videos for the funnel. I scheduled my day to where I can only do 2 to 3 appointments a day, and it's all in the morning between 9 and 11. If anyone outside that, I was like, we got to reschedule. I was so strict on my schedule that I didn't move anything around. And the funny thing is, was worried as I was about that, almost everyone adjusted because they wanted the service.
Yeah.
And I was like, what the fuck? Okay, cool. And so I kind of did that, but I'm being the visionary. I was building out trainings, all these things. I'm like, I know I need a team. I don't know when in time's going to be right. I need to make some money. And then come fall and winter, right? So September was when I did Bufo. And I mean, total cessation. I mean, every bit of me died. And I was reminded of my purpose, right? And I knew it at 8 or 9 years old.
What is Bufo again?
So Bufo is a secretion from the back of a frog I believe in the Amazon.
Okay.
That is then crystallized and you inhale it.
Yep. Okay.
And it's like a 20 to 30-minute experience. It's basically
it's short.
DMT. Very quick. Most people don't experience what I experienced. And so again, I don't know, maybe it's a divinity to all the timing of this.
Sure.
But anyway, I completely died, at least that's what it felt like.
Yep.
And I came back and my brain worked 100%. What I didn't know in September 2021, prior to that, I never drank coffee to my coffee company. And I only started a coffee company, believe it or not, because of the industry size and the potential. But it wasn't a passion of mine, believe it or not, at all. Like I was a firearms and martial arts guy, like, it doesn't make any sense. And I drank coffee 2 weeks after Bufo. My brain reset, and I was like, "Oh, that's what caffeine feels like." Like literally, my brain couldn't process caffeine. I sold CBD through my coffee company. I had CBD a month later. I was like, "Oh, that's why people like CBD." Like it didn't work for me when my brain was like I took every nootropic you can imagine, and nothing.
Yeah.
Like my brain was so jacked up that it was like. And this is why I talked the beauty of the TBI experience was like, it was to show me my gift, which is all our gifts. And what I believe, people think they're born, and like, oh, my gift is to play piano or to be this or to be that. It's like, no. Your environment and your brain will be what it needs to be.
Yeah.
You have to discover what you need to be. The gift is willpower. It's using the gift or not. That's the gift.
Wow.
And so that like, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
No, so that 15 years, I realized like, oh, you were teaching me willpower. Like, that's all it was. It was nothing more than that, you know? And,
you know, it's so interesting, Adam. There's so many threads that I want to pull from this. But what you said about you know, like the TBI that you had, and like realizing like this crash was coming every couple months, and it was like, and it seems it's so easy for us to just spiral down into this, like, well, this is life, you know, this is how shit's going to be. And then it's like, there's no hope. And it's like, it could be such a challenging, you know, abyss to really be in at so many times. But, you know, what you just said, and I believe you said this, you know, when I heard your story at the summit, is like, this is actually the gift that I only have a couple of hours. I have these few hours each day to focus in on what I can do. And it's so many of us, I think, like, we think that we need to, in this hustle culture that we have too, it's like, you always need to be doing something every second of the day. Like I've personally had that struggle of, you know, being, you know, a solo entrepreneur, thinking like, well, I'm awake, I should be doing some shit, right? And not realizing, like, if you actually hold your standards to this time frame, everything else will adjust. Like, it might take a moment, like it's probably going to be uncomfortable doing that for a bit, but if you hold to that, things are going to, you know, fit into that mode. If you have a vision and you are, you know, you hold those standards and you hold those boundaries, people are going to come around. Like that's the attraction that you bring. That's powerful.
Yeah. And just to like close it out, because what you said is actually going to align exactly with the next part of that story, is that, you know, so Metaplexus really launched in January 2022, but it was when I realized that my brain was working again, I like, being the crazy me, I was like, I'm not going to take advantage of this. Like, I'm going to go all out. I still kept my schedule, but I was doing like 20 appointments a week, working 2 to 3 hours on a Monday and a Tuesday to fill my whole schedule. And I would just do that over and over and over. What I didn't realize was the social energy that it depleted me from. And so being on all those calls, although effective in my schedule, was also wearing me out, to where I recrashed, and the brain injury felt like it came back 100-fold in December. And I was like, no, like this can't be happening. You know, so it's almost like Bufo gave me a taste of like what I can heal into. But it was like, did you really learn the lesson? So we're going to give you all the energy. Did you learn the lesson? And then I didn't, because then I crashed again, because I thought, you know, like, the brain injury's gone forever. Like, that's not how it works, man. You know, like, but when I admitted to myself, okay, like, I need a team now, that's when Sam showed up in December. She went full-time in January. February is when Marlon showed up. March is when BG showed up, right? Like, all these people, like, as soon as I admitted that I can't do this alone, like, things just started folding out, and things just became beautiful from there. Like, it's not saying that things are not hard. Like, you know, we've had some rocky past few months as far as the team goes, and it's not negative. It's just like difference of opinions, because we allow people to be them. Right. There's, you know, you're bound to bump heads. Now, Mara and I bumped heads for the first 2 or 3 months together. I mean, almost every day, but we're both red personalities. We're drivers. And you said this earlier. I don't remember exactly how you said it, but there's this balance between, you know, being in the flow state, the spiritual, and being, you know, tactical and data driven. Like, that's Marlon, that's me. Like, I'm so unorganized, and I'm so just in this place.
That's
that,
the
like,
visionary.
when vision comes, I have a vision dump folder that's got like 100 years of shit, and I get out of my head, right? Because if it's up there, it just stirs around. And I tell him, like, what do you think? He's like, yeah, it's good, but let's wait. I'm like, okay, thanks. You know,
that's so fun. That's like Gino Wick's like traction, like, you know, with the book, it's like you have the visionary and the integrator, right? And it's like someone's got to be up there, like seeing the future, while another person's got to be like, all right, well, these are the things that we have in place we need to get. And I think what gets misconstrued with that is thinking that one person is 100% visionary, one person's 100% integrated, when in reality, in order for teams to work, like everybody's got a little percentage of it. Maybe you're 80% visionary. Well, you're still 20%. You need to know the integration part. And that's when you start to, I mean, working as a team and, you know, I mean, especially with people who are, you're talking about important things and you're trying to do the best that you can. The chances that you're going to not have any conflict with that is zero. Like, and that's the beauty. That's how you grow with people, right? You know, it's like a relationship. Like if you never argue with your spouse, like you're probably hiding a bunch of shit.
No, and it's funny you say, because I'm sure BG said this in his program, but like that's something that definitely happens. Like if we're not bumping heads occasionally, like nothing's really happening, you know, like to think that thing's gonna be perfect, it's like, that's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring this up because this really hit me hard when I heard you speak, and I'm going to give you my interpretation of it, and then maybe you can elaborate on it. But you spoke about unveiling versus creating, and that hit me really hard because a lot of the work in shadow work and like embracing your dark side and stuff like that, it kind of has a lot of parallels with it, where it seems like we get into this energy oftentimes of thinking we need to create these things all the time, when in reality, everything that we're supposed to be, everything that we're supposed to do, it's already within us. It's more our job to strip away the things that aren't us, the things that are dragging us back, so that other stuff, you know, can come out. That hit me because it's, you know, it seemed like I was in a mix oftentimes of like, you're always trying to force and control things outside of it because you're trying to create things faster, when it's like, no, like you're doing the work. Like you just need to get out of the way. And for me, that was always like, oh my God, like, no, like I want to do more. I want to do more. When every time that I've seen the linear success that I was hoping for, it was when I got the things done that I need. I was like, okay, I've done everything. And then I stepped back, actually got out of the way and let God just take place from there and just let it create, you know, from there. It seemed like that was, when you said that message, that's what hit me right away. I don't know if that's the same experience that you had or if it was a little bit different, but that was really impactful to me.
Yeah, you know, like I participate in ayahuasca ceremonies, you know, occasionally, and you know, I'll get things before and I'll get reminded in ceremony, believe it or not. Like a lot of people get these messages in ceremonies and they're like, oh wow. And like for me, it's reminders because it, you know, dissolves the ego in a sense. And I'll touch on that because like I don't even see egos anymore. It's a weird thing. I'm not trying to sound weird, but like ego is simply the mind, right? The mind's the ego. So it's kind of the same thing. But we're seeing play out as subconscious programming of the mind. And that's what ego is to me. We're trying to define it as this exterior thing. We're like, no, that is them. They just were programmed, or I was programmed a certain way. And it's like just getting, you know, and that's all what BJ and Carrie do. It's like, let's reprogram that, right? Yeah, but the unveiling to me is, I don't know what I read or what I heard, because a lot of experience that I've had spiritually, I've experienced before I knew it was a thing. And so I'm still learning. So I might butcher some things. You know, so with things that I speak, I mean, it literally just comes through me. Like I've told people, like the vision is not mine. I'm just giving it. Like, this is why there's so much pressure from me to my team. Cause it's like, I see it outside of time. It's what I'm giving. It's like, okay, we have got no time. That's a message I've gotten. It's like, you're late to the party. You need to work. But the thing is, you can't burn people out because nothing gets done. Right. So it's being a visionary sounds really cool until you're actually in that position. It's very hard, you know? So anyways, but the unveiling to me parallels it so much, right? Like using the Batman analogy, like Bruce Wayne admitted to his darkness, and instead of being dark, he showed it and became people's light through that darkness.
Yeah.
You know, so he unveiled that to show the world, but it's like, this is me, like I'm dark, but I'm going to do the right thing. And it's like, it's not running from it. And that's kind of like shadow work, I guess.
Yeah.
You know, and then I think Hinduism talks about like, I think it's the true self, and then Buddhism's like the no self. And it's the same side of the coin, you know? And so it doesn't matter the path. It's like, you're just unveiling what is truth. And we can define that. And I don't like to define truth because like,
it's a slippery slope. Yeah.
Well, the thing about God in our universe or source, whatever you want to call it, if it's an infinite thing, then paradoxes have to exist. So what is true is also not true, right? So like what is self is also not, you know, so it's like, so unveiling to me is just exactly what you said. It's like, just being in that state of allowing, it's like, and I'll say this last thing, like I learned the 3 ego beliefs, and this is someone else. I didn't make this up. It just resonated deeply with me. The first ego belief is believing that you lack, and that creates depression and sadness. And we all experience that to a level, but it's understanding that we don't lack anything. We are everything we need, right? And I'll get to the counter to that. And then the next step up is, believing we can control or getting attached to outcomes, right? And that creates anger. Like, oh, you didn't do what I wanted. Like, oh, I didn't go all the way I wanted. I'm mad, right? And anger, frustration, resentment, whatever. It spawns around, those emotions are spawned around anger. And the next ego belief is believing we can control anything or everything. Yeah. And that creates fear, right? And that's what fear is, right? It's fear of the future that we don't know how to control. And so, and I said this briefly, I think in my speech too, because it's a powerful point that people really should think on. Like, honestly, like if you think about anything, people think about this for just an hour. Why is the news 90% negative? It's instilling fear. Because when you instill fear, anger and sadness come. If you try to build sadness, anger, and fear at the same time, it's hard. But if you instill fear, the other two come. You can't have the fear, the anger, and sadness without the ones below it. So for perpetual state of fear, you can almost guarantee, and we call that anxiety, we call that worry, whatever, there is anger and sadness in you. There's something that you believe you're lacking. There's something that you're trying to, that you're attached to, whatever. Yeah. And the counter to that is very oversimplistic, and I'll share one other point to that I teach in Metaplexus, but it's realizing that you don't lack, you are whole, right? So I am whole. And what is wholeness but God, right? Yeah. We'll use that word for now. And what is God but an infinite being, right? So an infinite being is not everything because that's finite.
Right.
You're really nothing, right? You're empty space. But being nothing allows you to be anything.
Oh gosh, yeah. I'm thinking of like the Pete Holmes skit of like, that makes no sense. It's getting infiniteness is getting bigger. It makes no sense. Stop trying to think that it makes sense.
Yeah. And it's funny because these all came to me and I was like, this makes no sense. It's coming in my own mind. And I watched 100. Infinity on Netflix. I was like, boom, thank you, Netflix. Thank you, universe. You gave me my grounding. And the next step, to the anger part and being attached to outcomes is I am love. Right? People are looking to learn self-love. People are looking to give more love. It's like, but you are love. Yeah. You're not love because you believe you lack something. Right? So I am love. And whatever that looks like, right? Now, unconditional love is a funny thing. People don't really understand that fully. I think because it's a paradox in and of itself. Like being loving is loving, but there's a level of honesty and trust that comes with loving. Like one of my the pastor of the church I go to, where I attend, for different events and in Ayahuasca, his mentor talked about trust. And he basically said, he goes, I will be betrayed 1,000 times, but I will trust 1,001. Now I'm not religious, but I hear Jesus' teachings through that.
Yeah.
Like he allowed himself to be crucified because he just let it be. Now I don't do that to yourself, like fight for your life maybe, but it's the ultimate example. And that's so true because I've done that through my life and I felt resentment and hate and all these things. But really, I've always been able to embody the level of that trust and that love where it's like, my wife's always said it, like she's a licensed clinical social worker. She's like, you're the most forgiving person I know. And I don't know why I am. But I am like, I really do let things go because I don't like to feel those things. And so the counter to anger is to be love. It's not easy. If it was easy, then the world would be perfect. And then the fear, right? It's like, it's trying to predict the future that doesn't exist. It's creating anxiety. It's trying to control everything. It's like, the truth is I am the gift. You can't control anything but your gift, and that's your willpower. And what your willpower can direct is it. That's your thoughts and your action.
I love that you said that. I'm glad you re-brought that up about, the gift is not the talent that you have or the the knowledge that you have of something. It's the ability to use it or not. And if you use it and you use that every day, that is the gift from there. There's so much on the ego. I mean, we could dive into, I think that'll probably be, definitely for another time, but that aspect of, of being whole, which means you embrace everything that you are. It's Carl Jung's favorite, famous line of, I'd rather be whole than be good, which means like, you're not just the good things, like you're everything that you are. And when you embrace everything fully and you know that everything that you are is okay, and that's good, that's a different type of unconditional love. I heard a story the other day, I'll close it at this, but this guy talked about, with his 3-year-old son, and his son just said something like, I don't love you. And his wife just went nuts. And he's like, it's like, you could know as a parent, it's like that probably like kills you, but he knows he loves his mom, but he just figured this is a phrase that has power behind it. So he was exploring it. And he said that to the dad, and he's like, son, I love you. And he's like, well, I don't love you. And he's like, well, that's okay. Like, you don't need to. It's like, just know that I love me. And the kid said like, well, how do I know if I love you? It's a good 2-year-old, 3-year-old question, right? And he's like, well, you'll learn that. It's like right now, the most important thing for you to know is that you are loved. And he's like, and that's how we should be in how your relationship with the divine and with God is. It's like, if you think that it's contingent on how much you are spiritual or how much you love God or love the divine, you're always going to feel like you're lacking. The first thing to know is that you're okay in the eye of the divine and everything there. And then you backtrack from there. I was like, oh, that's a really interesting method. I think that kind of puts a bow on everything that we're messaging here. So Adam, dude, I really loved this conversation. I had a blast connecting with you, and I would love to have you back on to continue this if you'd be willing. Sure. So this is awesome. So if people want to find out more about Metaplexus, I know there's a huge affiliate program that you have that works great. Like, where can people be directed for that?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to join the Facebook group. It's called Metaplexus Training Group, MTG. I don't know if we can drop a link somewhere for that. Sure. That's just the best way. We actually have a campaign right now. We're looking, last year we developed a millionaire and multiple 6-figure earners. So we're actually looking to find those diamonds in the rough, shine them up, make them the gems of the company. So we're actually starting a campaign. So actually April 3rd will be when we begin that, and we start to mentor. And I will be personally mentoring these people as well. Help them build a 6-figure or more income, on their own schedule, learning how I did it. If you don't have a brain injury, then you'll be more effective. I promise that. But being able to be effective like me and learning how to do that, without burning yourself out. So we do have that coming. So that group's the best thing to connect to. A lot of free resources as well. So if, we have people come to our program, and make some money, but apply our system to their own business and seeing success. So it's very universal. That's the cool thing about Metaplexus. It really is just to serve the mind, serve the people in a way that empowers them in any way we can. We just know it's going to come back some way, so we're always giving.
That's beautiful. And I will say, there's a lot of people that talk about building a strong culture and building success, but meeting all you guys from the team and stuff like that, you guys are truly embodying it and practicing it every day. So if you're looking for that, we'll drop the link into the comment, and I think it would be great. So Adam, thank you so much, brother. Till next time, man.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Love you, man. I really appreciate the time.
Love you too, man. Appreciate it. Guys, go follow Adam. I'll check you guys later. Peace. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you found some great value here. And if you like this episode, please drop a comment and leave us a 5-star rating and review. It does more to build the show than you can imagine. And do not forget to check out and join the Strength Connection Facebook group. In this group, I share the biggest takeaways and lessons from these amazing conversations, as well as training and strength tips for pursuing mastery and fulfillment in life. This group is filled with individuals looking to take full control over their strength, and it's the perfect space to explore new ideas and to share your journey. And you'll also get exclusive access to these Strength Connection Mastery Seminars. It's a deep dive into the physical, mental, and spiritual training that you can begin using immediately. So do not wait, go now. Seriously, go. All right, much love to you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you on the next one.